The Biden administration has suspended funding for the Chinese lab at the center of the COVID origins debate. Joining us right now is the CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski. Happy Friday, Adam. Funding finally stopped for the Wuhan Institute of Virology after the Biden administration found it was not compliant with federal regulations. This is the same lab that does gain-of-function research where it juices up viruses to try and create new vaccines, and the same lab that we know many lawmakers believe could be where COVID originated. So why now? Why did it take so long for the administration to finally cut funding?
Well, it does seem mystifying, Jan. So this investigation was actually only kicked off in September of last year. So it was a 10-month investigation, and finally the formal announcement came out a couple of days ago that the Wuhan Institute of Virology is no longer eligible to receive U.S. taxpayer money. Now, to be fair, payments were cut during the last administration, during the Trump administration. So the Wuhan Institute has not received taxpayer money since 2020. They had friends in high places. As late as May of 2021, Dr. Anthony Fauci was testifying in the well of the U.S. Senate, and he said that after a very long time of working with Wuhan Institute of Virology scientists, he found them very competent and very trustworthy. Turns out it's just not the case. They were violating U.S. safety protocols, U.S. regulations, and now finally there's a formal ban in place.
Even more to your point, the fact that there's been no funding since 2020, why would the administration announce it right now? Talk to us about the significance of this move.
Well, this is a rare event, Jan. Since 2020, Health and Human Services has only banned 15 organizations that receive grant funding, and they fund tens of thousands of organizations every single year. And so, look, it is, since 2017, our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com found $1.3 billion flowed into the nations of China and Russia. So think about this. We're borrowing money from China to pay China. For example, the Chinese Centers for Disease Control, since 2008, over a 15-year period, U.S. taxpayers have put $65 million into grants, including a grant last year in 2021 of $300,000 to train Chinese scientists on ethics.
The Wuhan lab is one of the most advanced laboratories in China. Adam, how much money did it receive from the U.S. and what did that money go toward?
Well, this lab has always been a black box. At OpenTheBooks.com, we were able to tie out, since 2008, an allocation of $2 million, $1.9 million in U.S. taxpayer funds. Of those contracts, and I'll break them down, there's basically three main contracts. Of those contracts, just last month, the Government Accountability Office did a study, and they found only $1.4 million on those contracts had actually been paid. Here's how it breaks down. Number one, subgrants through EcoHealth Alliance, $600,000 for the risky bat research that's in question. Number two, through the U.S. Foreign Aid Office, USAID, on subgrants through EcoHealth Alliance, $1.1 million, but only $800,000 was ever paid out on that. Those contracts ended in 2019, but still as late as fiscal year 2020, $200,000 on a subcontract from Health and Human Services through the University of California, Irvine, was meant to go for studies on transgenic mice into that Wuhan Institute. The work was done, but California Irvine says they pulled the plug on the funding and no money flowed.
And ultimately, the bottom line, Congress is responsible for spending taxpayer dollars. So what reform is Congress now considering to prevent this in the future?
Well, reform number one is to also study the EcoHealth Alliance to see if they should be formally banned from receiving U.S. Grant money. They were obviously a principal player on the subgrants of funding this Wuhan Institute of Virology. So I think that's on the table. U.S. Senator Joni Ernst, coupled up with U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren on amendment number 950 on the National Defense Authorization Act, they would mandate the Pentagon disclose all R&D studies, white papers, and programs on a go-forward basis. There's a real question of whether Pentagon money actually ended up at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And obviously, U.S. Senator Joni Ernst has the TRACS Act to track every dime of U.S. taxpayer money into adversarial nations in real time. And so those are three principal reforms.
CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski. Pleasure seeing you on this Friday. Hope you have a good one. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jan.